Alright, this is Jacques at Republic Guitars. I'm going to show y'all how to install the Schatten NR-2 Biscuit pickup. It goes right on the back of the Biscuit. I will show you how. So the first step, I already did this, but remove the string, so put a good amount of slack, enough slack to where you can just pop these out of the tailpiece. Move them out to the side. I like to do them all at once and then move them all in a clump. Put them off to the side, take off the cover plate, kind of easy, you know. Remove the screws. If you're not comfortable using an electric drill, just use a little hand screwdriver. And I'm going to put this stuff to the side for now. So the first step is drilling the hole for the jack. And we put them right here. You can't put them underneath the end pin because there's a block of wood, the neck stick kind of holding everything in. So we don't put them there, we put them right here, kind of where a normal guitar input jack would be. And start off by using a very small pilot hole, kind of find where you want it. You know, right here is where we put it. So I start with pilot hole. Be really careful. Once you go through, you don't want to punch because you don't want to have a little dent there. Just be careful drilling. And we use this here. It just kind of makes the hole bigger in one step. Obviously, at home you probably have just different sizes of drill bits. Just keep going up and up. And the best way to tell when you're there is to keep your jack handy. We're gonna use a Switchcraft, good old Switchcraft, and you know, just fit it in there. See where you're at. That's nice and snug. Nice looking hole. Be careful. If you have a wood body, put masking tape down, put a nice X, put something down so you're not chipping away the wood. Very important to do that on a wood body. And now we're left with all this debris inside of the guitar. So I try to, you know, knock it down, make sure it's all in one corner. Vacuum it out. The shop vac we have. It's a good step to take. Alright, just to make sure it's clean in there. Okay, so we got the hole one, I should say, because with these specific pickups, I'm going to add a little grommet, and this should come with it. If you order from us, we send you all this little package of goodies. So this is really important. Show exactly where. So I'm going to get that little drill bit again, pilot hole size. And what you do, set the cone back in, and it's going to go, it's going to be a hole right here, you know, somewhere in this area, above the cone, a good amount above the cone, not too high obviously, just sort of right there. That's where the grommet's going to go, because the wire is going to feed through the grommet to the jack. You don't want that interfering with the cone movement or anything like that. So I'll kind of show you. I'll make a little Sharpie mark of where I'm going to do it. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's gonna be kind of right there. You might be able to see. I will drill it and I will show again where that is. And the grommet size bit, let's see if it's labeled. It appears to not. This one's not labeled. It's fairly large. You want to be careful not to drill too much. But this is it. This is kind of what we're looking for. Let me put the grommet next to it. So it's basically the same size as the grommet, if that helps. Yeah, it's exactly the same size as the grommet. So go that big. Don't be afraid to go that big. It's nice to have them snug in there, but you also want to make sure that that cable is going to be able to move nicely. Remove the cone before you drill. I got the pilot hole in there. So I got the grommet hole drilled. Get all that debris out. I don't like any little bits in here. So I usually vacuum after both holes, but we do two different styles of pickups. Kind of two-hole system. Nothing rattling in there. Okay, so we have the grommet hole, and then we're going to go ahead and stick the grommet through the hole. You can kind of see there's one side that's a little bit more tapered than the other. I shoot for that, and you just kind of wedge it down in there. And just sort of work it. So it sits well in there. It might be dark to see. It's just basically a hole for a wire to go through. Just nice and clean. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right. Next step, I like to do this all on the cone. Make sure you know your treble side and your bass side. Bass side is obviously bigger gauge, bigger opening on the saddle. And then we use 3M VHB, great stuff. You know, you can kind of use whatever as long as it's going to stick on there. Again, if you ordered it from us, you should be getting all this stuff in a little kit. I like to put the tape starting where the wire is and then go all the way out, because there's always a little bit of excess and you kind of cut the end. You know, it's sticking out a little bit. Nice to have it nice and clean, cut the end off. And it's just easier to cut the end here than it is where the wire is. You don't want to snip the wire, do anything to that. Peel the back of the tape and get it ready for adhesion on the biscuit. Now you want it fairly centered where all the strings are going to be, just right on the back. You don't want it touching the saddle. You want it just a little bit, like a 30 seconds off, and just stick it right on there, just a little bit out of the way. We're not trying to get the sound from the saddle, we're trying to get the sound from the cone. You know, acoustic guitars kind of have that under the saddle pickup system. So that's kind of the perfect spot for it. It's just nice and in there, stuck, not against the saddle, not more on the treble, not more on the bass, just right in the middle. So next thing you do, very carefully, feed the end of the wire through the grommet. Kind of hard to do sometimes, just make it as thin as possible and get it through. Reach down in there, pull it through. Be careful moving the cone around on the body, you don't want to scratch it. I'm going to use this third hand or fourth hand, they call it, to get ready to solder. So I get my jack and I set that up, solder that together. The ground goes on the inside lug, the lead goes on the outside lug. Pretty simple. Get a nice little solder joint. If you have experience doing this, you know it's very easy. If you don't have experience doing this, just make sure you're trying to connect the 2 points as if they have always been connected and are one piece. Just keep that in mind. If it's moving around, it's obviously not connected well. Kind of can't go wrong putting the cords, the cables through the holes, soldering them in that way. You know, nice strong solder. Give them a pull, give them a tug, make sure that everything is on there as it should be. At this point, it's good to plug it in and make sure everything works. So you can tap on these some kind of metallic thing. I like to use something with a rubber handle. We have these little files. You don't want to, you don't want to scratch anything. It's coming out of the amp nicely. It's not buzzing. So, prop it up sideways. Kind of lean that cone over. And then we're going to install the jack from the inside. I like to leave the wires kind of hanging down just for gravity's sake. Star washer, and nut. Kind of finger tighten that. And then we have a special wrench, but you'll have something, similar. Just be really careful. Don't over tighten this. I just like to hold the jack on the inside and, tighten it so it doesn't fall out, but do not over tighten that, as they say. So now you're left with everything installed. The next thing I do is I feed as much of the wire as I can down through the grommet to kind of make this big loop of extra cable that we have down here. I'm going to tape that down. Use whatever you got. We use Gorilla Tape, just a little piece of it, so we don't want it coming off. This just helps. You don't want something loose in the body cavity, just kind of rolling around. So I just kind of pinch these two together, just make sure they're not going to be moving. set it down at the bottom of the body. Kind of have it nice and tight because I know once I reinstall the cone, there will be a little bit of slack, so I like to feed that slack through. Ideally you don't want this cable to be touching the cone at all. You know. Recenter the cone, make sure it looks nice, intonation purposes. And that's pretty much it. We're gonna put the cover plate back on, put the strings back on, just basically reverse order of everything, and tune it up and play it. And that's how you install the Schatten NR-2 pickup. Thanks for watching.